EOS 40D is a crop sensor DSLR from 2007, a part of the advanced level line of cameras which will probably end with the current 90D as we move toward mirrorless. 10 megapixel resolution, 9-point AF system, ISO which tops out at 1600, and no video or Wi-Fi look underwhelming on paper by modern standards, but this is still a surprisingly capable camera. Sadly, because of these specs, 40D is basically worthless today. Well-preserved units sell between 100 and 150 euros or US dollars. Also, keep in mind 40D is from an era when new models were introduced basically every year, so it's no wonder it lost so much of the value. 40D has basically a pro-level build quality. It has magnesium chassis and a certain amount of dust and water protection. It was regularly used for professional work back when it was new. In hand it feels very solid and is snappy in operation even by modern standards. Just look at the speed at which it cycles through raw files on memory card. Direct controls are numerous, and that includes twin control dials, AF on button and a joystick, something that Canon was and still is reluctant to include on amateur level models. 40D shoots at 6.5 frames per second, which is solid even today. It uses old BP 511 battery, which by CIPA measurements was good enough for roughly 750 shots. This of course varies a lot depending on how you use the camera. Once I squeezed 2700 raw images out of a single battery while the camera was shooting time-lapse, and I had to stop only because the memory card was full and had no spare memory card with me. It uses a good old compact flash card. I still like them more than SD. Bigger, easier to handle and physically less sensitive. At 3 inches diagonal, LCD screen is equally big like modern cameras have them, but has a rather low resolution, 230,000 dots only. Also, viewing angles are not exactly great. You can see how the image changes when I move the camera around. EOS 40D was the first consumer-level Canon DSLR with the live view option. That was a big thing back then, and some internet warriors screamed it is technically impossible on a DSLR. Luckily, engineers regularly ignore the peer review comment section. But being the first generation, live view is rather limited. If you want to use autofocus, camera will flip the mirror down and use face detect. Focus box can be moved, for example, in the corner, but focus points do not cover that area and camera will focus in accurately. Live view on 40D is more for precise manual focus and exposure preview than anything else. Also, battery life drops significantly when using live view, down to less than 200 shots. For start, you have to accept this is 2007 technology, and there are certain limits. Not much space for cropping, as it is only 10 megapixels, native ISO tops out at 1600, and dynamic range is not what we are used to with modern cameras. Shadow recovery attempts will make you want to pick your eye with a toothpick. But for most people, majority of images are not shot in extreme conditions, so there is actually not much to complain about in terms of image quality on this camera. In fact, it is perfectly fine. If you want a cheap camera to take a lot of images for some specific application or experiment with without ramping shutter count on your main camera, 40D is a perfect second or third camera in your arsenal. Also, as it has just enough resolution to fill 4K video, I used it a couple of times for time-lapse. Get one cheap on eBay and let it run until the shutter dies. Then simply buy another camera. It will be cheaper than replacing the shutter. 40D has no video mode, but any camera with a live view actually takes video to display it on the LCD. So actually there could be video, so someone just needs to figure out how to capture video feed on a memory card. Guys at the Magic Lantern tried it and had some progress, but the next year Canon released a 5D Mark II. Anyone wanting to shoot video found a way to sell some organ and finance a 5D. Soon other manufacturers followed, so 40D fell out of sight quickly. But guess what, when making this video I checked Magic Lantern forum out of curiosity, and there is activity even in 2021. It seems some guys are still working on 40D video out of pure hobby. I love when people find ways to reuse what is seemingly obsolete piece of gear. Altogether, there is a lot of features missing compared to modern devices, but if you want a durable and simple to use stills-only camera with superb ergonomics and don't mind lower resolution, this one will do perfectly fine. It costs next to nothing and keeps on shooting happily.